Hey guys, we're back with another episode of the Dixie Dems, the podcast from Lean to the Left that takes an irreverent look at politics in the South as well as nationwide. There's some crazy things happening, so stay with us. Hey guys, welcome to the Lean to the Left podcast in the April 2023 episode of the Dixie Dems with my partners Arthur Hill from North Carolina and Robert Thompson from Georgia. Now, Arthur is communications chair of the Brunswick County, North Carolina Democratic Party, and Robert is based in Atlanta, and he founded Peach News Now and its opinion podcast, Goddamn Liberals, which is worth a listen. Me, I'm based in South Carolina, home of the two Republicans who are planning to take on Trump for the GOP presidential nomination. Former South Carolina Governor and UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and do-nothing Senator Tim Scott. But before we get going, I want to encourage you guys to subscribe to the Lean to the Left podcast and give us a quick review. A 5-star review would be absolutely awesome, and that would help us a whole lot. So with that having been said, stick with us because it's going to be a fun ride. Welcome, Arthur and Robert. Let's get to it. Arthur, what's up in North Carolina?
We had an earthquake last week. Tricia Cotham, a freshman delegate from Mecklenburg County around Charlotte, who ran as a pro-abortion Democrat, decided she was going to switch parties. It was a mystery to me why she decided to switch parties rather than run as an independent or that sort of thing. But now it's come to light that she may have been a Trojan horse sent in by the Republicans to run as a Democrat in a heavily Democratic district. And she's actually a closet Republican who's just now coming out. This is important because up until last week, the General Assembly wasn't able to override a governor's veto of legislation. But now the heavily Republican legislature does have a veto-proof majority. There is only one vote separating the Republicans from becoming a veto-proof majority prior to last week, but now they do have one. And of course, the scandal and the fraud that's growing out of that is the fact that a lot of Republican-oriented PACs supported her in her campaign when she was running as a Democrat. And there's a lot of kind of circumstantial evidence that tends to lend credence to the Trojan horse accusation that Democrats are throwing out now. So there are dark clouds amassing in Raleigh, and we're going to be hearing some more of that in the coming days. Meanwhile, of course, she did run as a pro-abortion and anti-abortion candidate, but who knows what she's going to do now. And there is legislation to completely eliminate abortion in the state for almost any reason that the Republican majority could very easily pass and override a governor veto. Abortions are up in North Carolina 33% since the Dobbs decision. And the reason for that is because North Carolina, compared to its neighbors, has relatively liberal laws on abortion. And so a lot of people are traveling from other states, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, to North Carolina to get abortions. Legislation that's now in the hopper would limit the current 20-week end target for getting an abortion that exists now in North Carolina to as low as 6 weeks. But most of the legislation seems to revolve around 13 weeks. There's that going on as well. Finally, in terms of what's going on elsewhere in other Republican-dominated legislatures around the country, there's a whole slate of bills now in the North Carolina General Assembly that are anti-transgender. There's a package of 6 bills that have been introduced that are currently under consideration and have a good chance for passage, which would do a lot of the same things that legislatures in other states are considering. Banning transgender students from participating on athletic teams, banning transgender and intersex children from participating in athletics all the way through high school, restricting gender affirming care for minors, which is amazing to me, outlawing life-saving treatment for trans youth by making it illegal for health professionals to provide gender affirming care, and allowing medical providers to discriminate in providing health care to transgender children. So this package of enlightened legislation, to say the least, is making its way through the legislature now with a good chance for approval, again, because the North Carolina Republican-dominated legislature is now veto-proof. It's getting serious up here. The 24 election is coming up, and there's going to have to be a lot of attention paid to getting Democrats elected again in the state legislature.
Those transgender bills, they're popping up all over the damn place.
Yeah.
Tennessee just tried to become the first state to enforce restrictions on drag performances of all things. But what the hell is the legislature getting involved in something like that? That just is crazy.
According to the ACLU, there are 155 bills in state legislatures across the country as of October of last year. That's the latest number that I could find. And that's up from something like 10 years ago. So there's a cabal going on among Republicans in state legislatures across the country.
I would say it's more a lot of copying and pasting. I'll send you a check for a couple of grand if you copy and paste this bill and submit it. This is their same playbook for they've had how long? And we just hope this is going to continue to backfire on them because it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Organizations like ALEC and other private organizations that are, Robert's right, they're writing model legislation, and the legislatures, it's a no-brainer for a Republican. It just cut and paste, introduce.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. What's going on with you, Robert?
The breaking news, before we get down to what I want to spend some time on in Florida, Liz Cheney is saying that Marjorie Taylor Greene should lose her security clearance for defending the suspect in the Pentagon docs leak. That was a news flash to me that Marjorie Taylor Greene was allowed to have a security clearance.
Yeah. How about that?
But I guess because she has not been convicted of sedition or treason, she's allowed to have some security clearance. Like that dude in Florida that is all her buddy.
What dude are you talking about, man?
We're not going to mention his name today.
Oh, yeah. Does it start with a D?
Allegedly.
Does it have an S in it?
Oh, there's that one. There's the other guy in Florida. A lot of people refer to him as Death Santa.
Yeah, that's what you call him. Okay. So you're talking about the guy that has just been indicted, right? That's who you're talking about.
Allegedly, yes.
What do you mean, allegedly? He was indicted.
Ask Marjorie, though. Hell, she doesn't even believe in the normal neshe is she?
She's not on the House Intelligence Committee, is she?
Oh, she probably is.
Oh man,
I think she might be.
Because she was making backdoor deals with Kevin McCarthy to give him the speakership for all that. Can you imagine meeting in a dark corridor with Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Man, I'm telling you what, the Intelligence Committee, that's an oxymoron when it comes to Marjorie Taylor.
Oh, and mind you, they're all part of the swamp too.
Yeah. So what did she say to defend the kid in Massachusetts? What did she say?
Yeah, honestly, I didn't waste my time reading much more down because it just, ugh.
She made a public statement defending the guy for threatening the security of the United States. Isn't that an impeachable offense for a member of Congress to say something like that?
Allegedly.
Are you talking about that guy that's in trouble because he
Released.
secrets or something?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
guy. That young, he's like a young kid.
He's 21 years old.
Yeah.
He is a young kid.
What the hell? And then I saw, and I think it was in the Washington Post today, they had a story saying that the guy has been spewing all this anti-gay and anti-Semitic stuff on social media.
Oh, imagine that.
And he comes from a patriotic family, according to this article that I read, whatever the hell that means.
And then the other thing was he published these documents on their chat site, but a lot of the guys who also belong to that chat site apparently picked it up and posted them on their own social media pages. They're probably in a lot of trouble too right now.
Yeah. Okay.
They're doing the same thing this guy did.
So, Thompson, Robert, what is it that you wanted to spend some time talking about? You said.
So I have a number of friends that live in Florida, and I'm hearing these friends, most of them don't really know each other. So it's not like they're banding together and coming up with lies, because they're echoing a similar thing. And you can find these news stories. I believe it was State Farm Insurance gave X number of thousands of dollars to DeSantis's campaign. And you've got this coming from several different angles. He's going to make Florida unsustainable. You've got one of the big appeals of Florida is that you can move down there, maybe find a house that's not so expensive, maybe. And they don't have any state income tax because of all the tourism that they have down there. But what DeSantis is doing, and everything that I know about the situation, is he's making it unsustainable. As I used to know, and I'll have to research this a little more further, I'm not an expert in any of this, but there used to be an insurance company of last resort in Florida. So let's say that you live a mile from the coast, half a mile from the coast. Of course, you're going to have wind insurance and hurricane insurance. A lot of these carriers, Florida gets hit pretty much every year with a hurricane, and a lot of major hurricanes because of all the coastline. Your insurance company just may choose to leave the state because they're looking at the likelihood in the next 5-10 years that property they're insuring is going to have some sort of loss. And then they look at the numbers and shrug and say that doesn't make sense. So you've got the potential that some of these areas are not going to have an insurance carrier. So you had this, I forget what the name of it was in Florida, but this insurance company of last resort, that they are willing to write a policy on these properties that are dangerous. Again, it's Florida. I've heard nothing about that company. What I have been hearing is that insurance premiums are skyrocketing in Florida. You've got some people that are paying more for an insurance policy, and you have to have two. Again, if you live a half mile, and you gentlemen, I think you guys are on the coast. I know, Bob, you are.
Yeah.
But in South Carolina, you have to have the wind insurance, right?
Yeah. If you live, it depends where you live. I actually live in an area that's about 4 or 5 miles from the coast, and I do not have to have wind insurance. I don't even have to have flood insurance, although I do. Mm-hmm. I'm across from the intercoastal waterway, and that's a demarcation line. At any rate, that's tough what you're talking about.
Yeah. And you've got a lot of these folks that have moved down there because they like the weather. Maybe they're from the Northeast. They're getting away from the high taxes in the Northeast and the cold weather to go to Florida, dropping their state income tax and all that kind of stuff. But what about who's going to pay for the insurance premiums? And if you get hit by a hurricane, a lot of those deductibles on those wind policies are the percentages. They're not just $500, $1,000, $1,500. On top of this, I understand that this DeSantis, as I keep referring to him, he has passed tort reform in Florida. I have a good friend of mine that is an insurance adjuster who has been talking about all of these changes. So in the middle of all this going on, he's making it easier for the insurance companies to win when it comes down to a claim. So you see this perfect storm. But Tandra attended there, of what's going on. And then you've got, I think already, I was speaking to a former coworker that lives in Fort Myers. They are still recovering from the aftermath of Hurricane Ian that was last fall. Here we are. This is April 2023. Why are Florida residents in Fort Myers still unable to repair their property? Number one, are they fighting with the insurance company, which DeSantis has made it easier for the insurance company to fight with you? Or number two, can they even get anybody down there? Maybe they have a check from the insurance company, but are they able to get repairs? These are the things that DeSantis does not want you to hear about.
I don't know what it's like in your guys' states, but here, where there's a construction boom going on, legislation would make it far easier for developers to get what they want, mostly by taking local planning boards out of the picture and pretty much giving free rein to developers to do whatever they want to do to build housing around here. And when they do build housing, two things happen. The first thing is they're not building housing for low-income workers, which keeps low-income workers out of the area. So it makes it more difficult for the developers to come in and build, because they can't hire enough people to come in and act as contractors to help them get these developments built. No housing for low-income workers, pretty much free rein on what developers want to do. Potential for the same kind of chaos you're talking about in Florida.
Yeah. And this goes back to one of my campaigns that I've had on social media for a number of years. We're too poor to vote Republican. You've got it, and a lot of times all this is going to come down to money. And at what point are you living as a Republican in Florida and you're looking at all of the storms literally above your head, that it's not going to make it sustainable for you to live? Obviously, Republicans don't care about poor people. They only care about their rich donors. They only care about whoever they can take a campaign donation to, or engineer some kind of tax break for somebody. Keep voting Republican, and this is what's going to happen. On top of all this, you've got, okay, if you're a family that wants to move to Florida, there's not going to be teachers for you, because the teachers are throwing up their hands and running away, screaming. This book banning stuff that's going on down there, the don't say gay stuff. Yeah, Florida has become a cesspool, and you've got DeSantis running it. You've got Trump doing whatever the hell he's doing down in Palm Beach or what have you. And yeah, have at it. If honestly, if they were to cut themselves off from the union, bye, because it's becoming a cesspool down there. Also this week, Fort Lauderdale received about 40 to 50% of their annual rainfall in a day or two. It shut down the airport for days this week. The only thing that I went to DeSantis's Twitter, only like the afternoon of when all this happened, did he just send out a tweet and say, oh, by the way, I did an emergency declaration. Someone told me he hadn't even bothered to call the mayor or anybody down there. Of course not. That's not his base. He has some people that voted for him down there, but that's not his base. So why would he care?
Yeah, the mayor made a statement yesterday, or at least it was in the media yesterday, which didn't even, it said, yeah, he hasn't been in touch. I've declared a disaster area for Fort Lauderdale, but the governor hasn't. And but the mayor declaring a federal, just a disaster, let alone the federal part, means nothing. It has to be the governor that makes the move, and DeSantis is nowhere to be found.
You know where he is? He's
No.
with his buddy going to the NRA convention.
Oh, no kidding. Oh.
Yeah. So I guess he was too busy to infiltrate our country with more guns with all of those cronies than actually worry about his own state.
Yeah.
Didn't I read this week that DeSantis's poll numbers are starting to take a dive?
Oh, bless his heart. Apparently he barely got into office. I'm reading reports that it was very close. I just hope that's a net. But there's also, I think the bill, I think in Florida, you cannot be governor and also run for president, but he wanted to have his legislature just changed that law so it's convenient to him. Yeah, he's just, it's on a whim. It's like he's just riding down the interstate on a moped, maxing it out at whatever a moped will go at 50 miles an hour. But yeah, it's not sustainable.
I'm looking right now at a polling article by 538. 538 is some kind of a right-wing Republican outfit, right? Is that right?
I've heard both sides of that, but go ahead.
Whatever. It's showing that Trump's numbers have actually increased by from the mid 40s to just about 50%, 49.3% as of April 11th. And that DeSantis is steadily slipped from 30 to now about looks like maybe 25, if that. Yeah, about 25%. So he's not exactly catching fire with all that he's doing down there.
Yeah. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully it'll be Trump, because Trump did not get the popular vote the first time. He just got lucky with the Electoral College. He obviously lost the second time around. So, and apparently, can he run for president from jail? So,
Apparently,
well,
yeah.
you know what? He says he's going to, regardless. So that's why I wanted to ask you guys what you think about the fact that he said that even if he's convicted of a crime, he's going to run.
yeah, it's a cash inflow. Although he did miss an FEC filing, but in Trump land, that's just law break number 5,000 of the day. But yeah.
But I think he can run from a jail cell, but he cannot vote, and he cannot carry a gun.
Actually, that is scary, Arthur, that Trump may be able to carry a gun. That's scary.
If you're a convicted felon, you cannot carry a gun. So he won't be able to do that. The interesting thing, now that we're on Trump, interesting thing that's going on is this trial that he's been accused of rape. And that's getting ready to hit us. What happens if he gets convicted of rape? That's felony. He has to go to jail.
Yeah. I'm going to repeat the looking into my crystal ball, what can happen. I literally think that Trump will not make it to jail because he will die first. The dude is old. He has to put his makeup on in order and do his hair or what have you. I don't think he's going to make it to jail. He may get a sentence, but I just don't think he's going to make it there.
You think that putting his makeup on and doing his hair takes so much energy that it'll.
Well, I don't know any drag queens are going to touch him. So,
A bill in several legislatures to make it illegal for men to wear makeup. What happens then?
do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
But South Carolina is sending 2 people to run against them with Scott and Nikki Haley.
Maybe Nikki can do his makeup. Is she kind of decent at that?
I don't think she'll be in jail, though. I think she's probably pretty clean in that regard.
Yeah.
Bless her heart.
Yeah.
I still think that if somehow the sky fell in and Nikki Haley got the nomination from the Republican Party, I think she'd be a scary candidate.
Yeah, we talked about that last time, and I tend to agree with that. But she's got a long hill to climb, as so does Senator Scott. What really cracked me up this past couple of weeks when their announcements were being discussed, they're both trying to leverage their upbringing, their challenges that they've had in their lives, and like somehow or other that's going to attract Republican voters. Maybe they think it'll attract the dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporters who don't have two nickels to rub together. Maybe that's what they're talking about. What do you think about that?
I don't understand where Scott's base is. How does he get elected from South Carolina? Who supports him?
That's an incredible thing. It's just the fact that he's a Republican. And some African-American Democrats voted for him too because of the fact that he's an evangelical and plays that card up a lot. Some of the churches support him. But in the fact that he's black, that helped him with that group of people.
Senator Warnock here in Georgia, the preacher thing worked well for him. So
Yeah.
you cannot underestimate, although the church is shrinking, but you cannot underestimate that base.
Well, that's really true. That
Especially
really,
in the South.
that really is true. And when Scott made his little announcement on his video the other day, he emphasized his race, evangelical roots, his upbringing by a single mom who overcame poverty. He said that he rejects the, quote, culture of grievance and victimhood that the Democrats, he says, are pushing. That really cracks me up. Culture of grievance and victimhood. The Democrats are positive in their approach, what they're trying to do. They're not
We're just too woke for them.
Whining and carrying on like the Republicans are. Huh?
There's the lieutenant governor in North Carolina, Mark Robinson, is a black Republican who is absolutely outspoken about his views on abortion and LGBTQ segment of the populace, and outspoken in a bad way. And he's probably going to get the nomination. And he talks about the same thing. He talks about his upbringing, how he had a single mom, and he was raised in a religious family and so on, and had to overcome a lot to get to where he is today, and so on. He uses a lot of the same language that I'm hearing you say Scott does.
Yeah. What do you think about down in Tennessee, all this stuff that's going on with the Republicans threw those two Democratic House members out of office, and then they were reinstated? I don't understand how that works. Do you guys?
The two that they threw out were black, and they kept the white lady.
Yeah.
Racism is, and the Southern strategy is still alive and well. You had even Republicans in Tennessee standing back and shaking their heads about what in the hell is going on here. But hey, that's you continue to vote Republican, this is what you're going to get.
Yep. I guess they violated the rules of the state house and or the state legislature, and that gave them grounds to get kicked out. But I think the Republican leadership in Tennessee thought that they could get away with it, and they can't. And I think that the lesson learned from that episode is that there is a line. They crossed it, and they had to pay. The Republicans did. And I think the same is going to be true in a lot of state legislatures with some of the legislation that they're trying to pass. There is a line. Democrats are not going to let them cross that line without fighting back. And in a lot of cases, they'll have the public support behind them, and they'll be able to beat back a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But at least we still have American treasure Dolly Parton in Tennessee. And she doesn't talk politics very often, but she will tell you she wants to see more boobs in the White House. So
She wants to see more what?
She wants to see more boobs in the White House.
Boobs. Oh, that'd be good.
Dolly's American treasure, I'm telling you.
An American treasure. Yeah, she is. All
Never
right.
run for office, though.
Okay. Now, what about this stuff that's going on with the abortion pill? The Texas court banned it, said they were going to ban it. Then the other court, from whatever state that was, said no, they weren't going to ban it. And now it looks like it's going to be before the Supreme Court, which we all know what the politics are there. So what do you guys think about all that?
I'm hearing, I have a number of friends that now have vasectomies because of this. They are scared. If they have an issue, you know, what's going to happen? And yeah, if you've got the people that have been lifelong Republicans, and Bob is laughing, but this is actually real truth. And you've got folks that are lifelong Republicans, and they're looking at this and wait a minute, a child is an 18-year plus commitment. And my lady's going to be forced to carry it. So they're actually running to the doctors and getting snipped over this. I'm telling you, this is true.
I hadn't heard that. I think that's just wonderful.
I think beyond that, though, just beyond the immediate issue of the FDA approved this drug years ago, and said it does what it's supposed to do. It's beneficial and it won't cause harm. The drug has been out there for a long time. It's been doing good. What this does beyond just the issue of the prescription pill itself is it calls into question the integrity and the independence of any federal regulatory body. It's not going to be just if the Supreme Court lets this stand, it's not just going to be the FDA that's hurt. The FDA is going to lose a lot of authority on how it regulates, what it can approve, what it can't do, as are the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, all these regulatory agencies. If some wacko out there doesn't like what they did, he's going to go to court and he's going to cite the FDA thing as a precedent, and he's probably going to win. All of a sudden, this becomes a lot bigger issue than just whether the FDA approval of this particular drug was okay. It goes way beyond that. Lots of precedents here. And the Supreme Court may well say, we don't care. We just don't like abortion.
That's right. You've got the court that's been stacked by Trump, and there's no telling what will happen. I think it's a difficult situation this country's facing with that right now. Yeah. Women, man, I'll tell you what, if women vote for these Republicans, I don't understand where they're coming from. I really don't.
And also, it goes back the other way. Let's say that you have a child born into a good family. It's an 18-year plus commitment. But what about the children that are forced to be born into illegitimate families? Where's their support? Republicans just shrug and look the other way once the child comes out. Why is society being burdened with children that, you see where I'm going with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. On a little lighter note, we've got the Bud Light backlash going on. Do you guys know about that?
Good luck if you're trying to find beer that is not queer friendly. I've seen a lot of ads on a lot of beer companies, and most all of them have a queer ad somewhere. So
yeah, they do. It's not just Bud Light.
But red Solo cups will become more popular because
I don't understand.
They're red, they're Republican, and they don't have a queer brand on them.
Don't they have more to do than worry about that kind of stuff? For crying out loud.
Clearly not.
Oh, man.
All those Fox News people, they're going to be forced to testify on what they were up to talk about the voting machines. So
I wonder if Fox News is going to carry the Bud Light queer ads.
It was Bud Light, but I guarantee you that Miller and Coors, that they were unhappy that they were not targeted. Because look at all that free advertising that Bud Light's getting.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
Who started that? Where did that come from?
I have no freaking idea.
You give deplorables time alone amongst themselves, and look what comes out. It's scary. It's worse than a bunch of witches making a witch's brew.
Here's what they're going to do. They're going to take their complaint to the FCC, and the FCC, and they're going to say, you have to. These are public airwaves, and you can't have despicable ads like this going out on my airwaves, and I want you to force the networks not to carry those sponsors. And then we got a First Amendment battle coming up.
They got to worry about the woke people. So
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. You know, the Left podcast did an interview not long ago with someone named Dr. Pamela Gurley. And Dr. Gurley now writes some blogs for our Lean to the Left podcast, and she's been a guest on our show. And she's going to be appearing again within the next week or so. And she's going to be talking about legislation that is kicking up in Florida and some other states that would make it illegal for someone to take a video of a police stop. In other words, if come upon a situation where the cops have pulled over a motorist, and let's say this motorist happens to be African American, and is given that individual a hard time, and you stand there and you photograph that, you videotape that, according to this legislation, you could end up with a sentence of up to 5 years in prison and a fine. This is clearly an infringement on freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Really, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
So this is not a body camera thing. They're not outlawing body cameras.
No, they're not. They're outlawing. If you see the cops beating up somebody on the sidewalk and you take a video of that, according to this legislation, you could go to jail for 5 years. That's just insane. That's another DeSantis, or to quote you, DeSantis initiative, apparently.
Well,
DeSantis, he also has Gestapo literally in Florida.
Yeah.
He has got run out and claimed people were doing voter fraud and they weren't, and scaring them. So that's right up his alley. He literally wants Florida to be a cesspool of Nazis. So there you go.
Yeah, for sure. Just since I brought that up, if you guys want to make a note, that show with Dr. Gurley talking about that issue will be streaming on Lean to the Left on April 26th, Sunday, April 26th, assuming the interview goes off okay as scheduled. But that's when it's planned.
I'll be there.
Yeah. And she's written a blog about it, and that will also be appearing on Lean to the Left on that same date.
Yep.
All right. That's what I had on my hit parade. Have you guys got anything more you want to talk about?
No, I'm ready for happy hour. I'm ready for my gay Bud Light.
Okay, guys. Great talking to you, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Lean to the Left, the Dixie Dems. And if you want to send us a note and let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about, feel free to do that. Just send me a note. I'll be the quarterback for that. bob@leantotheleft.net. That's my email address. And we'll follow through. It'd be nice to hear from you guys.